Good afternoon to all of you, and I welcome you all to this class. As all of you know, we have learned everything that is according to our syllabus, everything about female genital system, and Dr. Disha has started teaching you important lesions that you should know in male genital system. So this is the last class that I am taking related to female genital system. You know what we were talking about in the previous class? Where were we? We were with the ovarian tumors. Was it primary ovarian tumor? No, it was metastatic ovarian tumors. So we learned something else in today's class. Yes. Can you see this picture? Should I go to slideshow? Yes. What do you see here? Don't just say two limbs, two lower limbs to be specific. Okay. Uh, you can all be there. You can all sit. What do you see here? So this was actually you can see the next picture also. See abdominal male or female. If I ask you this question, obviously, you will think the right answer. So this was a 25-year-old female who presented to Dr. Prema Prabhudev. It was just 2 months back, I think. So why did she present? With what complaints? So she had a history of primary infertility. Any woman, the important aspect is here, wants to conceive. So on taking history, talking to the patient, it was known that she had amenorrhea earlier once, for which she was given oral contraceptive pills and all, whatever therapy, hormone therapy. Now she again had amenorrhea. So detailed examination, physical examination was done, and what was known, what was identified was she had hirsutism and lot of hairs on her lower limbs, abdomen, and all. It's like a male type of hair distribution and all that. And the way she was speaking, we have an audio clip also of her. We had taken from Dr. Prema. It was a male voice. Why all this? What do you think now? What do you think when you look at a lady who presents to gynec OPD with infertility and all these features? Why all this? This says, which is a hormone probably responsible here? Testosterone estimation was done and it was very high. And later, all the investigations were done, including USG and so the ultrasound shows a mass in the ovary. So now we are relating everything, all these clinical features to a mass that is in the ovary now. Okay, so this was an interesting case, and we even discussed it. This is the entire case report. Recently, one of our PG, Dr. Nandini, presented this in our CAPCON conference also. So, 25-year-old woman anxious to conceive, presented 4 months of amenorrhea. She gave history of weight gain for 2 months, 2 kgs, visualization since 5 years. Okay, hoarseness of voice and all that. So past history also I told you amenorrhea, and otherwise no, she had one leiomyoma cutis on the skin. So you should know the sites of leiomyoma. What is leiomyoma? It's a benign tumor arising from smooth muscle, which is the most common organ or site where leiomyoma occurs. Uterus. The uterine wall is totally made up of smooth muscle. Okay, so their common terminology our clinician uses is they call it as fibroid. Fibroid. So microscopically it is leiomyoma for us, and we have taught you how leiomyoma appears also, and where else leiomas can occur. So wherever there is smooth muscle, you can uh, see leiomyomas arising. Okay. So where else? One I told you, this patient had leiomyoma cutis arising from the skin. So what smooth muscle is there in the skin? Erector pylori. Okay. So then GIT, gastrointestinal tract, the wall is made up of smooth muscle. So leiomyomas are known to occur there. Then what is angioleiomyoma? No, blood vessel wall also has smooth muscle from where it can arise. Okay, I don't think we'll relate this leiomyoma cutis to the ovarian tumor, but since this is a tumor which all of you have learned and we have taught you, so I just told you the other sides also. What is a malignant counterpart of leiomyoma? Very good, leiomyosarcoma. Okay, so USG abdomen and pelvis showed a well-defined hyperechoic mass in the right adnex. And MRI was done and it said ovarian neoplasm. And they even said it's a sex cord stromal tumor. I'll tell you what tumor it was. So the plan for excision of this tumor, it was excised and sent for frozen section so that we could give the diagnosis immediately when the patient is still on the OT table, so that if it's malignant, they can modify and proceed with the procedure. Okay. So this was a well encapsulated. You can see the specimen here, the fresh specimen which was sent. Hemorrhagic cut section had a very characteristic appearance. It was so yellowish. Ovarian tumors, when we cut and see it is yellowish, it always gives us an impression, or it tells us that there is some steroid hormone that is being secreted by the cells. That's why they are looking yellowish. So it is a well encapsulated tumor, no invasion into the surrounding stroma, no pleomorphism. So what does it tell us? Since it is benign. Yeah, but we could see cells in sheaths and globules which are uniform, polyhedral, and all that. See, they all had lipid-rich cytoplasm, and you can see this uniform cells. And one cell out of say after a very long prolonged search, I was so much interested to look into these cells. So I caught hold of the culprit here. What can you make out in this cell? What did your teacher carry when you are all in school? Your teacher had a stick in her hand. Yeah. So this is something like a rod. So when we say rod, what rod do we see in hematology? Or rods, okay. So they are in the myeloblast and acute myeloid leukemia. So these are they're looking like rods, but we don't call them as rods here. They're Rinke crystals, which was very well seen. So that was just captured using my mobile phone only. It came out so well. So a diagnosis of Leydig cell tumor, this is benign, was made here, and I think follow-up patient is doing well, because we had a clinical pathological correlation and discussion post-operatively only after the patient was discharged, and so we had follow-up of just 15 days or 1 month. So this was not malignant, this was a benign tumor. So why did I start with this particular patient who presented with all this? It's just an interesting or say a case scenario, and it's like a story just to bring you all into this particular topic. Okay, what are we talking about today? We're talking about functional ovarian tumors. So what is the meaning of functional ovarian tumors? We have to know. The objectives of this. You should just know when somebody asks you about functioning ovarian tumors, you should know what it means. What does it mean? It is any tumor of the ovary that produces hormones. And further, there are manifestations related to which hormone or what hormone is secreted by those tumors. Yes. Then we should know the list of tumors. Now you have learned about the WHO classification. So Disha has taught you, and I have also shown you again when dealing with this metastatic ovarian tumors, how classification of ovarian tumors is there. So tumors of the ovary, we should know the names that belong to this category, that is functioning ovarian tumors. So when you're asked to write a short note, you should be able to write about the names. Is it just enough to write the names? No, you should know what hormones are secreted or produced by this and what is the effect. Okay, so like if I tell you choriocarcinoma of the ovary, I have taught you choriocarcinoma of the endometrium. If I tell you choriocarcinoma of the ovary, what comes to your mind? Which hormone is secreted by choriocarcinoma? Beta HCG, very beta HCG, not just HCG, it is beta HCG. Okay, then fine. Then how do we detect it? Simple as urine test. So what do we call that as? A misnomer, I told you, pregnancy test. So like that. So we know now, suspect choriocarcinoma. Once we suspect choriocarcinoma of the ovary, we know it's a tumor that produces hormones, or the hormone is the, we can say, tumor marker for that tumor. And we have to be able to detect it. So detection is, we do a test. Whereas these hormones that are produced by the ovary, they manifest. They show us or they tell us that, yeah, I am there, please search for me. So we should know about it. So what are the hormones produced and their effect? So now we have started with a case where patient had a functioning ovarian tumor in the ovary that was Leydig cell tumor and it produced testosterone. That's why she manifested with all that. Maybe she might not have complained, but on examination, Dr. Prema has seen all these features and she had made a clinical diagnosis. It is virilizing ovarian tumor. And all the other investigations helped to confirm the clinical diagnosis, and pathologist gave the definitive diagnosis. So this is how the entire case scenarios are we deal. We say medicine is multidisciplinary. So all of us together we contribute to the patient care. So tumors that secrete one or more hormones. These tumors can secrete one or more hormones, and they secrete steroid hormones. And most of these ovarian tumors that secrete these hormones belong to sex-cord stromal tumors and steroid tumors category. So two things we have learned here. Functioning ovarian tumors, most of them belong to sex-cord stromal tumors and steroid tumor category. So what produces or which cells produce tumor is hormone is one question that arises. So the neoplastic cells themselves, they produce the hormones. One, because the tumor is there, tumor cells produce. Second is the stroma that is there, that also produces steroid hormones. So we should know about this. So when we talk about hyperestrenism, even when there is no tumor, should know that this could be hyperthecosis. Stromal hyperplasia, the ovarian stroma, or multiple follicle cysts which are persisting, the follicular cells. That's how. So there are non-tumor producing lesions or non-tumorous conditions also which produce hyperestrenism in the ovary. So cells resembling luteinized stromal cells or theca cells may be present that are responsible for the resultant hormone secretion. So hormones are produced by neoplastic cells or stromal cells or the luteinized stromal cells. So when we say luteinized stromal cells, you know about corpus luteum. Initially it is a Graafian follicle that ruptures, ovulation occurs. So then the follicular cells, they undergo luteinization. So they all look like liver cells, you should see hepatocytes. The large cells and granular eosinophilic cytoplasm. Once they become luteinized, they start producing progesterone. So that's how these are the cells which produce hormones. So straight away now we have just taken the causes for hyperandrogenism and hyperestrogenism. Yes. So ovarian tumors produce these sex-cord stromal tumors. So you know which are the tumors that come under this category. Okay. So these sex-cord stromal tumors, usually what do they produce? Male hormone, androgen. Okay. Then steroid cell hormone is the second category. So Leydig cell tumor, I've shown you an example. So Leydig cell tumor is one. Yes, they produce androgen. So let us leave all this rarely and very rarely, all that atypical presentation and all that. We'll just know what routinely or commonly happens. Then stromal luteomas, they produce hyperand, yeah, testosterone. Then steroid cell tumor not otherwise produced. So all steroid cell tumors. When we talk about steroid cell tumors, the terminology. So remember Leydig cell tumor as an undergraduate. What does it produce? Testosterone. Yes. Then granulosa cell tumor. Remember, we have shown you granulosa cell tumor. I'll just repeat one or two important aspects of granulosa cell tumor. Very common tumor that we see, and this produces estrogen. So when we ask you to list tumors that produce estrogen, so granulosa cell tumor is one. Next, theca cell tumor, two, and then sclerosing stromal tumor, and sex cord stromal tumor with annular tubules, Cully's tumor. This is very rare, you may not remember, but just remember as undergraduates, granulosa cell tumor, theca cell tumor. Sometimes granulosa theca can occur together. They all produce estrogens. Okay. So germ cell tumors. What are the germ cell tumors that I have taught you? Teratoma, right? So under teratoma, mature teratoma, immature teratoma, specialized teratomas. So we have to bring in specialized teratomas here. Carcinoid, which is classified as monodermal teratoma, very rarely may produce androgen. Okay. Then surface epithelial tumors, rarely or sometimes. What are the surface epithelial tumors? WHO classification, the first category, epithelial tumors, serous tumors, mucinous tumors, then endometrioid. So they may produce hyperestrogenism. Then Brenner tumor is one. Sometimes it can produce this androgen. Okay. Can we list the tumors of the ovary that produce virilization or androgen producing tumors? So, yes. So, first category is certainly, yeah, stromal tumors. So, certainly Leydig cell tumor. Leydig cell tumor is one I told you, you should remember, which comes under steroid cell tumors. Okay, anything else? Gonadoblastoma, I just did not tell you. Sometimes gonadoblastoma. Okay, then stromal luteoma. So remember, certainly Leydig cell tumor or Leydig cell tumor and stromal luteoma, very rarely gonadoblastoma that produce androgen. Okay, otherwise most of the other tumors produce estrogen, hyperestrogenism. That's why when we get a specimen of ovarian tumor, especially when it is along with the hysterectomy specimen, so we always tell our PGs to look for, to know grossly whether it is functioning. So how do we know if there is a granulosa tumor and if it is functioning? Hyperestrogenism, what effect it has on the endometrium? It could be hyperplasia, it could be polyp, it could be endometrial carcinoma, or there could be leomyoma. So estrogen producing tumors, granulosa stromal tumors, that is granulosa cell tumor, thecoma or theca cell tumor, or granulosa theca cell tumor, then sclerosing stromal tumors, and sometimes serous tumors, mucinous tumors, endometrioid. So if you know these names and what hormones they produce, that is enough. So let us just look at these tumors, how they appear grossly, and some microscopic pictures. So when we say virilization, androgenic effects, so these pictures are taken by my postgraduates and to show the features to make you remember. When we say androgenic effect, we say a picture is worth a thousand words. Okay, masculinization, virilization. So male pattern of hair growth, right? So masculine physical trait become stronger also. So increased androgen and clitoral enlargement and increased muscle strength. So what else when we talk about androgenic effect? Male pattern of baldness, yes. Hirsutism, deep voice, menstrual disruption, breast atrophy, increased sweat, prominent veins, altered lipid metabolism. Okay, these two slides are very well shown. What are the androgenic effects? Hyperandrogenism in females. Just depicted, same thing, pictorial representation. Okay. So here the cause could be ovarian tumor. Whereas hypertrichosis and polycystic, they usually produce hyperestrogen, yeah, increased estrogen, hyperestrogenism. So this is clitoral enlargement, then hair distribution, pigmentation, voice breaking, and male type of distribution of the hair, for muscles, mustache, everything. So that is about those two slides were really good to show the effects of hyper or male hormone production in females. Excessive, some amount would be there. So estrogenic effects. What estrogenic effect we can see? So look at the uterus and the ovaries shown here. Patient may complain of abnormal uterine bleeding. So why abnormal uterine bleeding? So the causes we have to start. If we consider endometrium, it could just be endometrial hyperplasia, simple cystic hyperplasia. It could be complex hyperplasia or atypical hyperplasia, or that we say endometrial hyperplasia forms a fertile soil for the development of endometrial carcinoma. So it could be endometrial carcinoma. So why I am not explaining to you in detail, because this is like a summary. We have taught all this in detail. Endometrial hyperplasia types and microscopy, all that we have taught you. Yes. So endometrial hyperplasia, simple, atypical, or complex, which is then adenocarcinoma, endometrial carcinoma, or polyp of the endometrium. So these are the things that we can see in the endometrial cavity arising from the endometrium. Then, what does this picture show you? So this is highlighting the myometrium. What are we seeing in the myometrium? There are three well capsulated lesions, tumors, which are projecting out. It's a fresh specimen that is cut. So what are these? They're so well capsulated. They've got a grey white fold appearance. Fibroid. So there are three leiomyomas in the myometrium. So that is also one of the result of or due to hyperestrogenism. Yes. Then malignant Mullerian mixed tumor or endometrial stromal sarcoma, where even these are the etiological factors. So I told you all this: endometrial polyp, leiomyoma, endometrial hyperplasia. Then cervical smear. How do we know that estrogenic effect is dominant, predominant? So during any period, that is in a menstrual cycle, any phase, you take a cervical smear and observe. Ideally, we say for hormone cytology, it is a vaginal smear that has to be taken. Upper one third of the vagina, lateral wall. Then we have to look for. So we scrape using a eye spatula. We take a smear and then stain it with a panicole stain, and we look for the type of cells. So when we scrape, most of the superficial cells, I mean the cells which are desquamated, usually they are taken. So if predominantly the superficial cells, that indicates it is estrogenic effect. So if there are intermediate cells, it is progesterone, and basal cells as it undergoes atrophy, the endometrium, okay, superficial pattern. Then fallopian tube hyperplasia and hyperplastic foci, even the end lining shows. And in the breast, what is the specimen which is kept here? What is this? What do you see here? Yeah, this is nipple and areola. This is a mastectomy specimen. So why mastectomy? We are seeing a fungating growth here. So the look itself tells us it is not benign. So it's just come out, infiltrated the skin and then coming out, projecting out. So the effects of hyperestrogenism that manifest in the breast are fibroadenoma, then carcinoma breast. So what is there in between fibroadenoma and carcinoma breast? What is the pre-malignant category? Yes, fibrocystic disease of the breast. So three things: fibroadenoma, fibrocystic disease of the breast, and breast carcinoma. And increased body fat and weight gain. We say actually increased body fat is one of the cause for hyperestrogenism also, because there is peripheral conversion to estrogen that is in the fat. So this is about manifestation of hyperestrogenism that could be seen. So whenever a patient has hyperestrogenism, so what manifestations? So the end organs that respond to estrogen are breast and uterus. So in the breast, what do we see? Fibroadenomas or fibrocystic disease or carcinoma breast. So in the uterus, how do they manifest? If you start with the endometrium, endometrial hyperplasia, which could be simple, which could be complex, or progress to endometrial carcinoma, and endometrial polyp. Then other tumors I told you, stromal tumors and Mullerian also. So then leiomyomas in the myometrium. And adenomyosis also we say is due to hyperestrogenism. So these slides have given a very clear picture about the manifestations of hyperandrogenism and hyperestrogenism. Yes. So apart from these other symptoms that a lady can have with hyperestrogenism, salt and fluid retention, depression, anxiety, headache. So everything, this is manifested during the premenstrual cycle. Then cyclical migraines, poor sleep pattern, isosexual, pseudo precocious puberty. I'll deal with this later. So hyperestrogenism, a nice picture that is depicting endometrial hyperplasia. So then comes progestational effect. Where do we see? When do we see progesterone? This is in pregnancy, right? So how do we know there is increased progesterone? When does it happen? This is when there is pregnancy, when there is ectopic pregnancy, or even when there is say hormonal therapy. Important is hormonal therapy. Whenever there is normal uterine bleeding, most of these patients are treated with progesterone. Pill endometrium, this is what we call it as. So how do we know that there is progestational effect? The stromal cells which are there. So with the increased progesterone or progesterone therapy or production, they all become plump. So that is decidualization. That is a change we see. And the endometrium becomes atrophy. And leiomyomas may enlarge because of progesterone therapy. And yeah, let us not deal with the cervical changes. So ovary also may show decidualization. And that's why we say increase in thromboembolism with oral contraceptive therapy and all that. So decidualization. So decidualization is when the cells change their appearance morphologically in or due to the effect of progesterone produced by or produced during pregnancy. We say almost all the cells in the body show this change. For example, for PGs and if there's a cervical polyp, a person has a cervical polyp and she's pregnant. So the progesterone effect, you can see in the cervical polyp. So if this polyp is excised, polypectomy is done and sent to us, all the cells in the stroma of this polyp, they all show this change. I'll show you how the residual cells appear. So progestational effect is decidualization. Still better pictures I can show. This is inflamed deciduum. This is the endometrial stroma that we are seeing. Okay, see how the endometrial glands are atrophic. So all these stromal cells have become prominent plump. They acquire a lot of cytoplasm. They look like epithelial cells. So that is the decidualization. Thromboembolism, increased frequency. Then steroid cell tumors, very rare tumors associated with other features, hypercalcemia, erythrocytosis, or ascites. So hormones that are secreted are cortisol, testosterone. We spoke about testosterone, sometimes cortisone and androstenedione and 17 ketosteroids and 17 hydroxy corticosteroids. So they are associated with androgenic effect. Sometimes it may produce Cushing syndrome. Yes. So how do these tumors appear? This is steroid cell tumor when you are seeing. So this is yellow. I told you, you should look at the color. Typically, and the surrounding is appearing brown or black. So because of hemorrhage. So the cells are polygon. They're lipid rich. They have lipid rich cytoplasm and lipochrome pigment. So what is the diagnosis when you look at these cells? Steroid cell. So which is the tumor? Look at this. They're lipid rich. That's why they are appearing clear. So this we have spoken. One third of the patients have virilized. So virilization, what does it mean? Development of male physical characteristics such as muscle bulk, body hair, deep voice, all that in a female, or precociously in a boy also this can occur like a precocious puberty. Then androgenic manifestations like amenorrhea, estrogenic, yes, half patients may not have any symptoms like related to hormone reduction. So precocious puberty can occur at any age, early age. Precocious is early age, not any age. Yes. So 8 years in girls, 9 years, and central or peripheral. Yes. Let us come to this picture. Now here you have seen the causes: endogenous sources, gonadal tumors, adrenal tumors, germ cell tumors, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, and McCune-Albright syndrome. So why did we come here? This is we were talking about pseudo-precocious puberty. It is secondary sexual development induced by steroids and all that. Let us just know about this syndrome. This is what I'm interested in because sometimes big question we get to answer this. This might appear. Affects bones. Albright syndrome. It's mainly a disease that affects the bones, skin, and there may be several hormone producing endocrine tissues. So people who suffer from Albright syndrome develop areas of scar, that is fibrosis, more fibro areas of scar what we see elsewhere, fibrous tissue. Such lesions appear in the bone, and we call this as polyostotic fibrous dysplasia. The other components. Can you see this polyostotic fibrous dysplasia? So they produce an expansile articulation in the bone. You can see this very expansile and a deformity here. And what do you see on the skin here? Yeah, pigment. What do we call this as? Yeah, I'll give you a clue. We can see this in neurofibromatosis. What do we call it as? Cafe spots. Cafe spots. These are features of Albright syndrome. Then sertoli Leydig cell tumor, usually unilateral, solid, and cystic. So when we deal with ovarian tumors, so we keep telling that you should know whether the tumor is cystic or whether the tumor is solid, or whether the tumor has both solid and cystic. So solid areas appear like this. So this was certainly Leydig cell tumor. We called it as Leydig cell tumor because only Leydig cells were there. Sertoli cells were not there in them. Sertoli cells, if they are present, they are in the pattern. They are arranged like tubules. Okay. Where do we see Sertoli cells? When we say Sertoli cells, histology of blood. Yes, we see it in the seminiferous tubules. So it is one of the cell that is present lining the seminiferous tubules. We say this is the one which is a supporting cell and it provides nutrition also to the sperms. You can see the sperm heads, embedding in the cytoplasm of cells. So when there is testicular atrophy, when all the germ cells they atrophy, it's only the Sertoli cells which remain in the tubules, and all the Sertoli cells have cilia. So when only these cells are there, Sometimes they all can look like this, bent towards one side. So what simile can you apply for this? These are tall cells. They have lot of cilia. Yeah, grass, which is very good. Okay, this is called as wind swept trait of appearance. You can see all the trees with when there is a heavy wind blowing, turning to one side with all the leaves. So that is the one case. I just told you about Sertoli cell syndrome only because Sertoli cell only syndrome because there is Sertoli cell here. This is so same our case where I showed you Rinke crystals. This is there we are very sure we are dealing with Leydig cell tumor, and we can do special stains also to demonstrate this like PAS and Gram stain, HND and all, right? So in histology you remember to have seen like this. Usually in a histology class we may not show. This is rete testis. Sometimes when we see the, testicular biopsies, the orchidectomy specimens when we get, I'll show you the microscopy how rete testis appears. Okay, when this is dominant or it is seen, we call it as retiform sertoli Leydig cell tumor. Heterologous elements could be there in Leydig cell tumor at up to 20%. Heterologous is apart from sertoli Leydig or Leydig cells, we may see mucinous epithelium. Mucin. Secretions also are there. Mucinous epithelium or mesenchymal. So sertoli cell tumor, 40-50 cases, occasionally androgen or usually both androgen. Then sertoli cell tumor, this is how it appears. Tubules, very characteristic is they all look like tubules. Obesity, increases the risk of carcinoma of the reproductive tract. And we say obesity, yes, one of the etiology for hyperestrogenism. Mechanism is increased adrenal activity makes more androgen precursors available for conversion to estrogen in the peripheral tissues. Here we talk of adipose tissue. So conversion of androstenedione to estrone is elevated in obese patients as adipose tissue is a major site of conversion. This is peripheral conversion. Then Leydig cell tumors continued. We are seeing virilization here. Yes. So the size may vary, but the cells are very typical. You can see cells like this. Where do we see Leydig cells normally? Testes, they're in the interstitium of the testes. They look like this, Leydig cells. In histology, people have learned. So, this proliferation of such cells here in Leydig cell tumors. So, clustering of nuclei. Gonadоblastoma. So, this is again for virilization. 80% of phenotype, the females are present with virilization. So, gonadоblastoma, you mentioned. Then granulosa cell tumor. So we have taught granulosa cell tumor. It could be solid, cystic, or both solid and cystic. It could be unilateral, it could be bilateral, and the size varies. Many a times we have seen microscopic granulosa cell tumor. Ovary is only this much, 3 into 2 into 1, and on cut section we see a tiny or small granulosa cell tumor. Which is so much microscopic granulosa. The entire tumor can be taken on a slide. So it could be very small, microscopic, or large. And the pattern, I'm sure Dr. Disha has taught how the cells are arranged and all that. So they're all arranged in the pattern of, see, there is a space and then the cells around. Any organ in the neck where the cells are arranged like this, thyroid, okay, thyroid follicles. What do thyroid follicles contain? Colloid. So here we see eosinophilic material. So this is microfollicular pattern. This is called as Collinsner body. Probably represents ovum or something. That's one pattern. And typically, just look at the nuclei. What do you see in the nuclei here? A central line. See, line can you make out? That means the chromatin has gone to the center and arranged linearly. This is called as grooving of the nucleus. Where else have you seen grouping of the nucleus? Yes, papillary carcinoma thyroid is typically grouping. I was showing you one slide recently, but it was not occasionally. So this is grouping of the nucleus, which is very characteristic of what tumor are we dealing now? Granulosa cell tumor. Okay, grouping of the nucleus. Thecoma. What does it produce? Estrogen. Right? Estrogen. So how can you expect a patient with thecoma to present to the clinician? So imagine this thecoma is producing lot of estrogen. Yeah, menstrual disturbance. What menstrual disturbance? When endometrial undergoes hyperplasia, abnormal uterine bleeding, excessive uterine bleeding. Yes, menorrhagia. Yes. So postmenopausal. That's why we say if this occurs in postmenopausal women and they present with any abnormal uterine bleeding, in postmenopausal should be, looked with suspicious of endometrial carcinoma also. So this is thecoma. We have seen several tumors. Cut section C, it is yellowish and you can make out whenever it is yellow, we say there is some hormone production. Then fibromas, sometimes fibromas also. Pure fibromas occur only in the ovary. I don't know, you've not included fibroma anywhere here. Even fibromas can produce estrogen, okay? They look like leiomyoma, but they're fibromas. Elsewhere, we see neurofibroma, some combination we see. But here it is pure fibroma that occurs in the ovary. Yellowish, it's telling us there is some hormone, yeah, that is present in the cells or the tumor cells are producing. This is thecoma, the cells are plump. Then endometrioid tumor, what does it produce? 7% have breast cancer, endometrial hyperplasia, carcinoma means estrogen. Yes. So this is how it appears, and microscopically we see tumor adenocarcinoma, but they look like endometrial glands. Then Brenner tumor. Brenner tumor is associated with elaboration of estrogen or androgen. So, but whenever we say Brenner, it's only estrogen that comes to the mind. So, androgen by the stromal component of the tumor, the cells produce this. And Brenner granulosa can occur together. Mucinous cyst adenoma. See, there is a cyst here. Mucinous cyst adenoma and Brenner can occur together. Two combinations. This is what we see. This is the epithelial nest that we see in Brenner tumor, and typically the cells have grooved nucleus, just like I showed you, and that's referred to as coffee bean. It looks like coffee bean appearance. Then mucinous tumors, what do they produce? Surface epithelial tumors, what do they produce? Estrogen. Serous tumors, they produce estrogen. So this is one slide, mucinous adenoma, for discussion for you and to identify in practical classes. I think I've not made you people see this or made you, I've not made you write the diagrams. We are left with cystoglandular hyperplasia and mucinous adenoma. I'll take a practical class on that. Then embryonal tumor, precocious puberty, serum beta HCG, that's a choriocarcinoma. So I'm just skipping all this because the rest of it are all for our AGs to learn. UGs, I just told you the objectives. You should know what are functioning ovarian tumors. Then, which are all the tumors that belong to that category. So the names of the tumors with the hormones that they produce and what effect is there based on the hormone that is produced. Yeah. Choriocarcinoma also I told you. What comes to your mind when I show you a picture of choriocarcinoma? Extensive hemorrhage, necrosis, and it can metastasize anywhere. So this is about functioning ovarian tumors I have slightly elaborated more because our PGs also were interacting and they were with me. But the take home message for you is I told you the first slide, the objectives. Remember only that. Know the names of the tumors and the hormones. Okay. So listen to this lecture and then just make a note of it. So we always say, how does a student learn, or how do we learn? I'm also a student. Teacher is always in the process of learning. Okay. So learning styles. We have done a lot of studies also on this. How do you learn? How do I learn? How does she learn? Okay, that is it. The learning style. There's something called as VARK style of learning. VARK. Visual, auditory, read. A K is kinesthetic. Some people are so sharp, they just listen to the lecture and then that's enough. They don't miss classes. They'll just sit and listen to the teacher. They can remember so well. That's great. So, auditory, mainly their hearing is used there. Visual, yes. Instead of telling, describing a rose is so beautiful, it is red, it is like, just show a picture. No, picture talks everything about it there. And some people they have to read on their own and then learn and all. Some people have to do okay, how to prepare coffee. So I'll tell everything. That is actually kinesthetic only. You have to do prepare and then learn. So when we did this survey, we did on I think dental students and medical students also. But how do each of you learn? Just think of. And it was known that one of the pattern did dominates. But usually we use more than one because God has given us all the sense organs to use all of them. So why only one? So the people who use, of course, two or more, all of them to learn. So why am I telling you about work style of learning? Is because I told you listen and then make notes. This is how I can learn. I can't just read and learn. So if I am reading anything, so I have to make notes. I have to write it and then remember. So that completes female genital system. I've taken probably one class to talk about functioning of tumors doesn't matter because in your practice, I'm not just looking at your examination point of view. We're not preparing you for the exams. We're preparing you as a physician who can recognize all these entities, whether you become an ophthalmologist or any NT specialist or a pathologist or microbiologist. What is it? Many patients come to you. They may not only come to you with a slide or diagnosis. Many patients come to you with a lot of their complaints. So we should be able to identify, recognize. So think about what is happening. Only we have the knowledge we can do it. Otherwise, no, we become zero. I can't say, oh, I see only slides and you can go off. So that's how we should be useful for the people or patients who come to you with their pain, expecting that you will do something good to them. So don't waste your time. So keep yourself busy. So learn a lot of other things also. You have plenty of time and keep safe, stay safe, be at home, take care of everybody. So the amount of COVID infection that we are seeing, the number of cases, it is so scary. Many people are just succumbing to this COVID infection. It is very, very painful. We're losing our friends, teachers, and colleagues elsewhere, the doctors, community. So please take care. God bless. All the best.